She is the first black woman to become a U.S. vice presidential pick. In a time of increasing racial tension, what role will Kamala Harris play? And will she help Joe Biden's bid for the White House? This is Inside Story. Hello, welcome to the program. I am Hashem Ahelbarra. U.S. Senator Kamala Harris has joined Joe Biden's presidential campaign. Biden's choice of a black woman of Indian descent as his vice president comes at a crucial time for the United States. President Donald Trump is facing mounting pressure over systemic racism and police brutality. He's also been accused of mismanaging the COVID-19 pandemic. And during their first campaign event together, Biden and Harris went after the president's track record. They said Trump has failed to lead the nation and run the economy into the ground. We'll bring in our guest in a moment. First, this report from Mike Hanna in Washington.
Kamala Harris's life is about to change. Now in the media spotlight as she leaves her home in D.C. on her way to appear with Joe Biden.
My fellow Americans, now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Kamala, the floor is yours.
Kamala Harris had built a reputation as one of the most formidable voices in the Senate, and she went straight on the attack against a president who she says has failed the country during this time of pandemic, and whom she accuses of responsibility for the fact that an American dies of COVID-19 every 80 seconds.
This virus has impacted almost every country, but there's a reason it has hit America worse than any other advanced nation. It's because of Trump's failure to take it seriously from the start.
Earlier, there were harsh words from Joe Biden about President Trump's response to his nominee as vice president.
Donald Trump has already started his attacks, calling Kamala, quote, nasty, whining about how she is, quote, mean to his appointees. It's no surprise, because whining is what Donald Trump does best, better than any president in American history. Is anyone surprised Donald Trump has a problem with a strong woman or strong women across the board?
President Trump says he did not watch the briefing, but again expressed surprise at Joe Biden's choice of someone who sharply attacked him during the Democratic Party presidential primaries.
She said horrible things about him, horrible things. And she mocked him, openly mocked him. That's why I thought that was a very risky pick, because I'm sure that'll be played back. Not necessarily by me, but others. It'll be played back.
The would-be president and his running mate have now got their campaign underway, a campaign that in this time of social distancing and mitigating measures will be very different from any the 55-year-old has run before. Mike Hanna, Al Jazeera, Washington.
So, who is Senator Kamala Harris? She was born in Oakland, California, to an Indian-born mother and Jamaican-born father. Harris was first elected as District Attorney of San Francisco in 2003, and 7 years later, she became California's Attorney General. In 2016, Harris was elected to the United States Senate. And last year, she joined the race for the Democratic nomination for president before dropping out in December for lack of support. Harris became a leading voice in justice reform while in the Senate and in the wake of George Floyd's death. But her critics say she didn't do enough to investigate police shootings while she was California's Attorney General. Let's bring in our guests. In Sandy Springs, Georgia, we have Republican analyst Janelle King. In St. Paul, Minnesota, Richard Painter, who served as chief ethics lawyer for President George W. Bush and is now professor at University of Minnesota Law School. In Wilmington, Delaware, we have Trevor Honeycutt, a political correspondent embedded with the Biden campaign for the Reuters news agency. Warm welcome to you all. Sandy, let's go to the very heart of the matter here. By picking Kamala Harris as his running mate, is Biden betting for black voters?
Absolutely. I feel that Biden thinks that this is going to bring in black voters. But let's just be clear, Kamala Harris didn't bring in black voters in her own race. She had to drop out before we hit 2020. So my concern with this is that I don't think that the process in which he chose her is one of honor. I think it's one that's a bit insulting. So Kamala Harris is a woman who put 1,500 people in prison for having marijuana, when she goes on an interview and jokes about smoking marijuana herself in order to connect with black people. This is who she is. She accuses him of being a segregationist. She accuses him of, or she says she sides with the women who accuse him of raping them. So, and now all of a sudden he's a great guy and he's exactly what we need for the country. This is not convincing to anyone.
Okay.
I think at the end of the day, I see why he chose her, in the sense of he was pretty much blackmailed into choosing her, because he was told if he doesn't choose a black woman, that he won't win this race and that he will not have the support of many of the people in the black community.
Richard.
So, I mean, I understand all of that, but it's not convincing. I'm not impressed.
I see your point. Let's go to Richard. Let's put it this way. Richard, was the national debate about racial inequality decisive in Biden's pick for Ms. Harris?
I think she's a very good choice for a lot of reasons. I believe she will be a leader in our struggle for racial equality in the United States. But she was a very competent, effective prosecutor in California. And it's amazing to hear Republicans complain about putting too many people in jail for drugs, which is exactly what Donald Trump's been pushing. She was a very good prosecutor. She appeals to independents, such as myself. I was a Republican for 30 years, but got out of the Republican Party because of the pathetic leadership of Donald Trump. And Kamala Harris is someone who's right in the middle of the road and appeals to independents because she was very much of a law and order attorney general in California. And she's an excellent prosecutor. And she's zeroing in, of course, on what's going on with the Trump administration and all the corruption. As for the allegations against Joe Biden, the only person who made an allegation against Joe Biden of any seriousness is somebody who's written letters basically saying that she's in love with Vladimir Putin. So, I mean, that's just laughable to be talking about that business. So bottom line is we need to focus on COVID-19, the fact that 150,000 Americans are dead. We have corruption in our Justice Department. We have a lot of very serious problems in this country.
We will talk about those in detail. Trevor, now, winning black voters is one thing, but ensuring significant black voter turnout in the election, I think this is going to be the biggest challenge facing Biden and Harris.
Oh, you've hit the most important topic there. I mean, there's no guarantee that by adding Harris to the ticket that it changes anything in terms of turnout. And it's important to remember that when Hillary Clinton lost, she was a Democratic nominee in 2016. When she lost, one of the main reasons that happened is that we saw in this country the first decline in black voter turnout in 2 decades. And it was a decline of about 5%. But that's really one of the things that made it difficult for her to win, because she really needed a number of votes in critical states that she didn't have. And so that's really the big question for Biden, is how can he get those numbers up? How can he get that excitement up? And the campaign is really hoping that not just with black voters, but with women who she's polled well with, even Republicans. She polls better than Biden with Republicans. That just in general she'll excite a group more voters and get more people out to the polls.
Janelle, if you look at the Biden-Harris ticket on one hand versus Trump-Pence ticket on the other, with Biden very eloquently articulating the problems the United States of America is facing under Trump, this should be a source of major concern for the Republican establishment, I assume.
No, not at all. And before I answer that question, I want to push back a little bit on Richard when he stated that Republicans like putting people in jail or who have an issue with locking people up. When we're looking at a president who, as of today, I think there's around 7,000 individuals have been released under the First Step Act. So actually, we are now correcting the mistakes of Democratic leader Joe Biden from the 1994 crime bill. So we have to make sure we put things in proper perspective. And as of right now, I don't think that the Republican Party needs to be concerned at all. I think we're in a good place. I think that at the end of the day, when I look at Joe Biden, I don't see someone who's genuine. With President Trump, you know who you're going to get. Either you like him or you don't. His personality is a strong one. And sometimes it rubs people the wrong way, but he sticks to his guns and what he says is what he says. And when it comes to these two individuals, they flip-flop and they say whatever they need to say in order to get what they think is going to harness support.
Richard, let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that Biden and Harris might face in the near future. There's absolutely no doubt in the mind of many people that Bernie Sanders, the progressives, have in a way or another shaped, galvanized the momentum of the Democratic Party over the last few months. For many progressives, those on the left, they don't seem to be pretty much excited about the potential for two moderates leading the nation.
Well, that may be true. And of course, I don't come at this from the left. I'm a former Republican, and I'm in the center of the political spectrum. And the Biden-Harris ticket very strongly appeals to those of us in the center of the political spectrum. We want law and order in our country. We want an experienced prosecutor as vice president. That's an excellent choice. We want a president, vice president loyal to the United States, not the back pocket of Vladimir Putin, who invite a foreign country to interfere in our elections. We just go through what's going on in the past 4 years, and moderates and conservatives are absolutely furious. I mean, that's why my good friend and law school classmate George Conway is leading the effort to get Donald Trump out of office. And many people, far more conservative than I am, see this administration as a threat to our national security. So that's going to be the main issue, not whatever stories they can make up about Biden and Harris and pretending they're left-wingers when they're not.
Okay. Trevor, you'll be in the campaign trail covering the story as it evolves in different parts of the United States of America. Is it wise to say those who convinced Biden to pick Kamala Harris were looking into red and purple states, places like Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, Georgia, as places where she could tilt the ground in favor of the Democrats?
Absolutely. So the Biden campaign sees themselves competing in a wider set of states than they initially thought. They think that the response to Trump's coronavirus response has given them more places, including more conservative states, and they once thought that they could win. Texas, Georgia, Ohio. It's a little bit hard to tell whether some of that is posturing or whether they actually believe that. But what they are going to do is make Trump think that he has to compete in all of those states. And they think that Kamala Harris is really going to be helpful to them there. She polls with women. We just did a poll. She polls with women better than Joe Biden does. She polls with Republicans better than Biden does. She polls with younger voters a little bit better than Biden does. And nearly 9 out of 10 Democrats like her as the vice presidential nominee. And so when you begin to think about how if Democrats pull this off, if they're able to win, it's going to take women. Women are the largest segment of the voting base here. It's going to take black voters, the most loyal constituency within the Democratic Party, who are a big part of states like Georgia, Michigan. So really, if she's able to kind of help put back together that what they call the Obama coalition, the group of voters that put Obama into office twice, then really that's what they think is a winning mixture for them.
All right. Janelle, I understand when you say that you don't see how she can defeat along with Biden, Trump and Pence, but look at your country. Never before has the U.S. been so polarized the way it is. Never before has this debate about racial inequality and racism shaped the debate to the point where Black Lives Matter has become the talk of the town. And suddenly you have Kamala Harris along with Biden at this critical moment for the United States of America. Don't you see that as a wake-up call that this is the beginning of the end for the Trump legacy?
Not at all. So here's the thing. I think a lot of people are understanding that what's happening with the Black Lives Matter movement, not necessarily the message, but the movement is not what we are in support of. We are not in support of a Marxist mentality or a Marxist regime that comes in and destroys communities or at least condones individuals who do and destroy communities. We are all about making sure that we obviously address the topic of police brutality, which, let's be clear, when the George Floyd case hit and everyone was a part of this and we all experienced this emotionally, we were all on the same page, no matter what the color of your skin was. We saw racial reconciliation for a brief moment. But at that moment, instead of continuing to have peaceful protesting, we allowed individuals to come in and hijack the movement. And then we have people who are leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement who are self-proclaimed Marxists. So this is not causing any type of unity at all. If anything, this is what's creating the division. So I think what's happening is that people are realizing that what they thought was going to occur as a result of this is not what's happening, and we might as well stay with who we know.
Richard, tomorrow when it becomes more about bigger issues, very complex issues, don't you think that the Democrats will be grappling with convincing people, particularly those on the left, those asking for the police budget to be defunded, those asking for more robust approaches when it comes to the economy, criminal justice, and all that stuff, won't be convinced that Biden and Harris are the right pick for this?
I don't notice any prominent politicians, certainly not in my home state of Minnesota, saying we ought to defund the police. We just need a better police department. And let me explain what happened here in Minnesota. We had a police union chief who was running around distributing Cops for Trump T-shirts and encouraging police officers to have racist attitudes, to endorse political extremism, and pushing back very hard. And I blame the Democrats for this, too, because of the influence of the police union, pushing back very hard on any investigation of the police officers in Minneapolis. We had a very violent culture there among some of the officers, a lot of very, very good officers. That situation blew up, and we had protests in the streets. Most of them were peaceful. Our governor knew how to handle the situation. We did not need Donald Trump saying that he was going to send his federal troops into Minnesota. We made it very clear that if he did that, we'd have our attorney general in court. And the way Donald Trump has addressed this national crisis is very, very dangerous. This is very similar to what happened in Germany in 1932 when they sent in federal troops into Prussia, and then Hitler took over in the next year. And our state can handle our own civil disorder. We took care of it. We didn't need Donald Trump. They don't need him getting his agents in there in Portland, Oregon, grabbing people off the streets. And Lafayette Park, what does he do? He beats up protesters, peaceful protesters, pepper sprays them so he can go hold up a Bible outside a church. And that's a church I worshiped in when I was in the Bush White House. And the bishop of that diocese made it very clear that he was not welcome doing that. And they beat up those protesters in order for him to have a political campaign photo op to appeal to the far right wing. Americans are not going to tolerate this.
Trevor, if we are to learn lessons from the last presidential elections in the US, the African-American women widely seen as the backbone of the Democratic Party, the leftists are the rising stars, but when it comes to casting votes, ultimately it's the social conservatives and the urbanites within the Democratic Party themselves that make decisions. Does it explain why Biden decided ultimately to go for someone like Harris? So in a way or another, he's not giving any indication that he's moving forward to upset the political structure of the Democratic Party.
Yeah, I mean, Biden has had a really tough campaign to run in terms of trying to satisfy multiple different constituencies, right? Because you have this rising movement in the progressive movement, some would call it, on the left, in the left wing of the party that he had to sway, he had to appeal to during the primary. And he was able to successfully get the endorsement of liberals like Senator Bernie Sanders and Senator Elizabeth Warren. But then he also has to, Democrats historically have also wanted to appeal to the center and this kind of swing voter type person. And the perception is that in order to get them, they need to be kind of centrist. So I think, a lot of people, and then Biden also wanted to choose somebody that he liked personally and felt that he could have a working relationship personally. So there was kind of a high bar for this choice. And a lot of people feel like Kamala Harris was really the best choice out of all of them because she can because of the perception that, she has some liberal positions, right? Some positions that are more liberal than Biden on criminal justice, but also, is sometimes seen as kind of a moderate. She's an excellent fundraiser, has great relationships with donors and kind of the wealthier people in the party. So it was kind of a mix of things that they saw in her, and it seemed like she had all of those characteristics more than any other candidate.
We have less than 5 minutes, and I would like to visit some of the issues here. Very briefly, Janelle, you are a Republican strategist. Let's assume I'm a Democratic strategist. It's going to be an easy ride for me. You know why? I have 80 days. Your president has divided the nation, took backstage position when it comes to foreign policy, and has completely messed up when it comes to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ultimately, I will just buy time, and by November, it's sealed. My team is going to win.
Well, I understand that it seems like having the easier route is going to definitely get you there. But what it shows to me is that, let's be clear, first of all, the Democratic Party has not done anything as it relates to the COVID experience other than criticize the president for actions he's taken. The pandemic is something that no one could have prepared for. So I don't think we should continue to attack the president for doing the best he can. But I definitely think we'll see when it comes to November.
Richard, in her first event as a running mate, Kamala Harris spoke about the new coalition of conscience on the streets calling for change, implying thereby that she's going to move forward without change. Do you think that this call for a change is going to resonate among many people, including those who voted for Trump 4 years ago?
Well, Americans are very concerned about the situation with our government right now, and the president making money off the Trump business empire around the world while he's conducting our foreign policy, the corruption of the Department of Justice, the mishandling of the COVID-19 crisis. So we're in a very dire situation at this point. And I hope that the Biden-Harris ticket will urge that this country come together and that we not get into a thing about progressives versus centrists versus conservatives. This is about the United States of America. And whether we will continue to run our own democracy or have Vladimir Putin or other foreign powers choose our president. And so I hope this country can come together and move away from the ideological divide that really could tear our country apart.
Trevor, Ms. Harris has always been inspired by Shirley Chisholm, who 50 years ago launched the first campaign by a Black American woman's bid to become president. Is it likely to pave the way for her to become the first African-American president of the United States of America after 8 years or 4 years from now?
Well, she'd be a lot closer, wouldn't she? And I think you hit the nail on the head when you're talking about whether it's 8 or 4 years, because, Biden himself has intimated, suggested very subtly that he might not be a two-term president, right? And at his age, he's in his late 70s. Maybe he is only a one-term president. So when you think about somebody like Harris, who's already run for office, who's already had big rallies, who's already campaigned, and then to be picked as the number 2 in the party, it kind of tees her up to be the if Biden cannot serve a full 8 years, to be the next person in line. And you'd have to think that would be a huge advantage coming into a primary in 2024, if that's what it comes to.
It's going to be a quite interesting, pivotal moment for the United States of America during the race. And let's hope it's going to be more about substance, not about style. Janelle King, Richard Painter, Trevor Honeycutt, I really appreciate your insight. And thank you too for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. For further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on Twitter. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Hashem Ahelbarra, and the entire team here in Doha. Bye for now.